All right, so my name is Hillary Fleenor. I'm a lecturer here at Columbus State University, and I'm talking today about serious games.
I don't know.
For racers who race hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and way too many hundreds of miles, and you probably wouldn't ride that bike for fun unless you were some sort of professional bike racer. On the other hand, we make sort of big, clunky, silly bikes that are just for fun, but most bikes kind of fall somewhere in the middle. They can be used for a purpose like transportation, getting exercise, or just going out and having a good time. So that's kind of how I think of games when we're talking about, is it a serious game or not? This game is classified as a not a serious game. This is an entertainment game, but this is a game that actually ended up having a really big impact on my life. I played this game not too long after it first came out. It is sort of an unofficial sequel to the Alice in Wonderland, where Alice's parents have been killed in a terrible tragedy, and she's in a mental institution, and she is sort of trying to figure out how to escape her own psychoses in Wonderland. So it's sort of very scary. You see the Cheshire Cat does not look fun and friendly. I played this game and it was a really cool game. And around about a couple of years later, someone very close to me was diagnosed with mental illness and was really suffering from it. He ran into some really big problems in his life, and I was trying to help him through it. And I thought we'd kind of got him to a good place, and I get a call that he has driven himself to the hospital, to the parking lot, taken every pill from his house, taken all of them, and then called 911. They induced a coma. He was in a coma, I think, for 3 days, and he ended up with permanent organ damage, even though he didn't die, and I was furious. And it was actually this game, though, that helped me kind of think about how hard it is to understand mental illness and what other people are going through. I mean, it sounds silly, but it was. I mean, I was sort of thinking about, she goes through these bizarre scenarios where she's fighting this giant caterpillar that's trying to kill her, and she's having this kind of horrible adventure inside of her own mind. And in some ways, this helped me be able to understand a little bit better what my friend was going through. So this just sort of goes back to how there aren't just serious games with a purpose, and there aren't just entertainment games. And when you design a game, when you develop a game, when you put a game out there, you don't really know what kind of impact it's going to have. So speaking more about impact, we like to organize things as humans. So I've kind of organized into topics, different types of serious games, so we can talk about the kinds of impact you can have with serious games. There's a little bit of overlap between these, though. They're not, again, there's no sort of binary, you fit into this category, you don't. So education, training simulation, science research, advertising, tourism, health, and social change. So within education, this is kind of the first sort of quintessential education game for a class. I was researching a paper about educational games, got on social media and said, hey, what are some educational games from your youth that you really remembered and had an impact? And I'd say about 70% of people immediately, Oregon Trail, Oregon Trail. I mean, game was amazing. And you know, they remember dying of dysentery. They remember falling over in the river and losing some of their their supplies and whatnot. There was more to it though. I mean, you really did learn some things. I mean, if you played it a number of times, you realized as a banker, you had more money to start with, and you had a slightly better chance of making it through the game than when you started out as a farmer. So they actually talked about these kind of realizations that they came to when playing the game. So I mean, they really did learn something from it, along with having fun and putting in cuss words as the name of their character and stuff, you know. So the game was sort of updated. I think it was around for about 40 years in various different iterations. It sold over 65 million copies and was inducted into the World Video Game Hall of Fame in 2016. So, I mean, this is an educational game that has had a huge impact. Another one people mentioned was Carmen Sandiego, the detective geography game, where you could try to chase down Carmen Sandiego, but you had to learn about geography and all the different places along the way. People really enjoyed that game. The latest version clearly looks more up to date. They're still selling Carmen Sandiego, and now it's not just a detective story. You can get it as a comedy. You can get it as spy-fi. They're still doing all sorts of things trying to teach geography with Carmen Sandiego. This game, now we're getting a little bit more recent, so this is a pretty new game, and it is developed by the Mind Research Institute. This is actually based on the work of a number of neuroscientists, where they have found that one way to get students to learn math better is to make the teaching of it language independent. So they're targeting the sort of spatial, temporal reasoning areas of the brain and using kind of images and patterns specifically to make it disconnected from language, which, especially for young boys who lag a little bit behind sometimes in reading and language development, so they're not missing out on the math before they've actually mastered reading skills. So this has been shown to be really effective. They have all different kinds of games and little things in it, clearly geared towards younger students. But this is all based on pretty cutting-edge neuroscience. Moving away from the young ones a little bit, we still use educational games for adults. This game is an alternate reality game, which is something that's becoming more popular and more used. This was created by a PhD student. He was getting a PhD in teaching computer science. He's from, I think, Finland. I think he's from Finland, yes. And he set up this alternate reality game, and he sent out messages across his campus to different people, and he didn't tell them, like, this is necessarily a game. He just sent out these sort of, like, cryptic secret messages. And people from all over the school, not just computer science students, got really interested in trying to solve these puzzles and figure out, you know, some sort of invasion or spy story or whatever. But he got really good results, people from participating, and pretty soon they're telling their friends at other campuses. So students from other colleges were participating, all blog style. It was now it's closed, so you can just kind of see the archive, but people would be posting blogs and trying to help each other out solving the different puzzles that he put up, and not even realizing that, you know, they're learning all about computer science principles. So this game is having a huge impact in the world. If you don't have this app, you should have it. It's awesome. Duolingo is a game for learning languages. It started about 2011 as a project. I think this started at Carnegie Mellon, and they ended up kind of putting out, and it was actually lucky enough to get an email from someone that I knew when this actually came out in beta. They wanted to do research on it, and they were looking for people who didn't speak certain languages. And so I think I signed up for French or something. And you used the app for a certain amount of time, and they recorded, and you took a test before and after, and they actually paid you for it. I mean, not a lot, but it was really fun to be a part of that study. And they found that our group, in I think a 6-month period, using it about an hour a day, was the equivalent of 1.5 college courses of a language. That's how much we progressed and learned in that amount of time. So it's you can earn these little hearts, and you go up levels. The languages that they have: Spanish, French, German, Italian, Portuguese, Dutch, English, Irish, Danish, Swedish, Russian, Polish, Esperanto, Turkish, Vietnamese, Hebrew, Ukrainian, Hungarian, Welsh, and Norwegian. So it started out, it just had like 4 languages, I think. So now we're here at 2016, it's on the web, now it's an app.
Is that a free application?
It is a free application, absolutely positively free. They want to get that out in the world, and they want people to be learning new languages. So this is having a huge impact, and it's a game, and I've done other language apps and stuff before, and it's not nearly as motivating as when you have these and you see the little bar go and your little hearts pop up and yay, I got a trophy, So it's a great thing, and mostly adults use it. So again, having a big impact in the world. Piano Wizard is for kids and adults, and it's actually a game that teaches you how to play the piano. A guy decided he wandered into a piano class in college and never left. 4 years later, he had a piano degree. He was absolutely obsessed with it and obsessed with teaching it to other people. He started having these like summer boot camp academies, and out of that, he came up with this idea, to really get piano out into the world to people, make it easy to learn piano, make it fun to learn piano. Kids who are 2 and 3 years old can be learning piano with this game. They find it translates very well from learning here to then going to the actual piano, and it's been a very successful. The Music Wizard is now the company, so they also are doing other instruments and just basic music skills and stuff. But all of these games, these aren't just little dinky math boring games that you would be writing at a boring company and the kids hate playing them. You can really make some amazing educational games that can really change the world for someone. So we're moving from education into something very related to education, training and simulation. These types of games are more geared towards military, corporations, those kinds of things, training specific skills for employers. Not always quite though. I'm not sure what we learned with this, but sort of as kids, I kind of think of this as training for capitalism a little bit. Like we played Monopoly, right? And then now we have these tycoon games where, this is a game, but it's a simulation. You're really sort of being trained in how these types of things work in the world. You have to make a railroad business, you have to purchase your tracks, you have to keep it running, do it in a certain amount of time. I think I probably learned more about economics from these types of games than I did from my terrible, terrible high school economics class. So, and it's fun. The U.S. military has a game that they made, and this was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and it's a tactical Iraqi. And this game, a lot of the soldiers that used this game said it made a huge difference for them when they went to Iraq and had to communicate with the people there. It's a simulation game where it's not only teaching language, but it's teaching about cultural aspects, teaching about what is appropriate to do, what's not appropriate to do. In some places you don't shake people's hands, you don't look them in the eyes. And this game actually helps them learn those things so that when they get there, they're better able to communicate with the people that they're trying to help. And this was one of the quotes I took off of their page. I said that this game impacted my success, as well as 3-7, that's the 3rd Battalion, 7th Division that got this training. Iraqi saw we were different from other Marines. I still have friends from Iraq calling me on my cell phone to keep in touch. So they really felt this game helped them to be able to connect with the people they wanted to help, instead of there being a barrier and it being a very antagonistic situation in a time of crisis and war. So another simulation that, this game made a really big impact, made a big difference. training surgeons. They're finding that surgeons are much better trained before they actually get onto people's flesh. One study where they did cataract surgeries using these computer programs showed that their learning curve just dropped dramatically. They were able to not make mistakes and the surgeons were really comfortable getting them in, doing things much more quickly when they'd had the training on the computer software, which is free, which is, software is not free, but you don't have to bring out another cadaver or whatever. You don't have to set up so many times of them observing too many people in an operating room. It's not necessarily a good thing. So these are having a really big impact on reducing errors and getting our surgeons trained more quickly. Corporate training. This is a great place where, as game developers, you can make money. More and more corporations are wanting these kind of games for training their employees. These three here, this one is a Cisco training, so this is for Cisco, training on their systems, or for a company if you want them to be Cisco certified. This is a game for data and privacy security. I tried to get a picture of the one at Fort Benning that we use out there. They made us play a game for our security thing, and it was all full of spies, and we had to get little badges and things, and people yelled at us and went if you got something wrong. Up here, Hilton had a program developed to train people on customer service scenarios to help them be more prepared and be better at serving people at the front desk. They go through a game instead of just watching a video. So companies are liking these because they find that they're more effective with training, and they can also kind of give them a test and assessment that's built in throughout the game, so they have some sort of accountability that, yes, we did train people on these things. They're low cost in terms of physical training, so more and more companies are having these done. So again, they have to hire people from other companies. They often contract it out. Sometimes they do them in-house. So this is another opportunity for game developers. Then we move into the science and research games, and these are really cool. So Fold It is a game where you, as just a non-scientist person, can go play this game on how to fold proteins, and if you can make a really cool stable protein, you submit it. And the researchers will take a look at it, and if it turns out they can reproduce that stable protein may be good for curing diseases, or for understanding how different mechanisms work. So when they first released this, they ended up publishing a paper about it in Nature with 57,000 authors, because they put all of their game users as authors on their Nature publication. And they found that the humans doing the folding were either matched or did much better than computer algorithms at finding these stable protein foldings. So humans are actually really good pattern matchers, especially when it comes to visual pattern matching. We're still just a little bit better than computers. And so being able to do this crowdsourcing and getting people involved, no one's going to want to do it if it's boring, but if you make it in the form of a game, you actually have useful research going on that has a big impact in the world. Other games similar, you can use your visual pattern matching human brain to help us find planets. So you can look at astronomical data and help figure out where planets might be in the universe. You can use your awesome visual patching pattern brain to go and look for worm eggs. So this particular worm, the genes that it uses to lay its eggs have some similarity with some genes in our brains. And so when they lay, they need us to go and watch these worms and point out when they go and lay their eggs, so that they can go and collect some data at that point when they're laying their eggs. And what they're hoping is that that's going to help them to understand our brains better. So you can watch for worms to lay eggs if that's your thing, and it's kind of fun, it's kind of quirky, it kind of sucks you in a little like Tetris or Candy Crush or whatever. So, but I mean, scientists are getting useful data out of this, and this is something the computer just stinks at. It's terrible. So, a game, and maybe we can fix our brains. This is another one, it's genes. So this is more about phylogeny. And so being able to match up these sequences, you're actually matching different DNA sequences between different species, trying to figure out relations between like ancestral versus, what came first, what came second, how do we all sort of fit in the phylogenetic tree. So that's another visual pattern matching game. This one is actually closed now. They finished it up. It was open for about 4 years, but they wanted to figure out what different whale calls meant. So they recorded all these different sightings of these whales doing different things and the different calls they were making. They put them, the sound patterns visually, and they had people match up the patterns so that then they could figure out, okay, well, all these patterns are the same. Now let's go to the video. What were all these whales doing at that time? So to try to figure out whale language. So a fun game, you get to match the little things and learn how to talk to whales. Advertising and tourism is sort of another area where we've got serious games. This one is from 1996, Chex Quest. Believe it or not, they modified Doom. This is non-violent, but it came from a very violent game, but this was the very first game that they put in a cereal box. So it was about between 96 and 98. They won a bunch of awards, the Effie, the really big advertising awards, because this is really effective. Kids love the game. But it's a game they put in cereal, and the kids really liked it, and someone got paid to do that, right, to make this game. So advertising, using games for advertising has been for a long time a big thing and continues to be. Did anyone play that? Did anyone ever get this in their cereal? Did you? Nice. This is another game, and the thing that gets me about this is that this is like just a game. So it's just like a Sega game that you went to buy in 1993, not realizing it was advertising. You're not pulling it out of a cereal box. You're not getting it as a special deal. But it's just a regular video game all around the Jaguar brand. So it's sort of very, very clever, right? You're going to train young children to believe that, the fastest, best, coolest looking cars are Jaguars. It's very clever. So, and that's what it looks like, because this was 1993. So. The Army actually uses the game as a recruiting tool. They have since 2002. There's been about over 40 different versions of this, different updates. Still, the new one is up on the website. It's free. The nice thing about this is that what they're trying to do is give potential soldiers the opportunity to kind of see what it would be like and see if it would be for them. And I haven't played the game, so I don't know, how accurate that is. And it is a recruiting tool, so however it is that you feel about that. But I think it is neat that they're trying to say, hey, take a look at this, see if you think this would be something for you. So as a recruiting tool, games can be used as a recruiting tool, and probably a really powerful recruiting tool because games are. Another alternate reality game, advertising game, was sponsored by McDonald's. But nobody knew that when this came out in 2008 for the Summer Olympics. Jane McGonigal is the alternate reality game queen. She has an amazing book called Reality is Broken, where she talks about some of these games that she makes. She helped design this one, and they wanted to get more interest in the Olympics because viewership had been lagging, excitement about the Olympics had been lagging. So they sent out these big packets to about 50 popular bloggers, and they opened them up and they said, these athletes have been kidnapped and transported and put inside this maze and they have to solve this puzzle about supposedly there was a 6th Olympic ring, and that was removed for some reason, and then the sport that it represented went away. So they had to go around, this is all over the world, 27 different cities. People were calling, their friends in Paris, like, hey, can you go to where we think this might be and see if you can find the secret clues? Everyone had to work together. First, they discovered the lost sport, and they finally did. And then they would organize teams to, actually do the lost sport and videotape themselves. And then they actually brought the best teams all together to sort of compete in this Olympic thing. And clearly this is all, publicity stunt. But I mean, it's really neat to think about, though, how you can bring people together from all over the world, 6 different continents, with a game. So that's pretty exciting. This is a picture of the packet they sent out. So, at conferences, people were complaining they wanted to be more involved in the conference, not just passive participants sitting in the audience and maybe getting a couple of questions. So a company came up with a Twitter game where you set up an account specifically for your conference so that people can tweet and be very, very active all throughout the conference and keep people more engaged. Just a way to make things more interactive, just another way that you can use games to bring people together. Because maybe you wouldn't have ended up talking to someone at a conference, but with this, you might have really liked something that they said and you responded, and they like what you responded, and then, maybe you guys end up meeting for lunch or something, and you end up with a great contact that you might not have gotten otherwise. So, health. Lots of cool stuff for health. Malaria hunters. There's a company, and they've actually made 3 different games. I think one they found not to quite be so effective. I think 2 of them are still available. But if they think you have malaria, they have to look at your blood under a microscope, different samples of your blood under the microscope, and they have to count the little number of pathogens that they find to determine if you have it and what the level of severity is. It takes an expert about 30 minutes. That's a long time. I mean, you might not be on the shelf for days before anyone can figure out you have malaria and you get the medication. So they've made a game where the game trains you to become an expert in looking at the samples, counting, the number of things, and diagnosing whether or not people have malaria and to what level that they have it. It has dramatically cut down how quickly that they can get people the drugs that they need. So when you think of how many people contract malaria, and they're also trying to do one for tuberculosis, this is saving lives, actually. You're actually playing a game where once you get trained, you will be looking at people's actual blood samples, and your counting could get them the drugs they need quicker and save their life. So that's pretty amazing. Super Better, another alternate reality game. Jane McGonigal suffered a head injury and had a really hard time recovering from it. So she actually created this game to help herself stick to routines that she needed to do to be able to recover. And she made it available to everyone so you can use it to basically get through anything you're going through. You want to break a habit, you're suffering from depression, you want to exercise more, any of your own personal health challenges, you can design your own game. So involve your friends and family members to help support you and give yourself rewards, punish yourself if you don't do what you're supposed to do, whatever you need to do. So it's just basically an online framework for being able to do that. So, and tons of people are using it. Actual therapists are using it with their clients because they just find it's a great way to help track. You can let people onto your account and hold you accountable. So you can have people go in and say, you didn't log these things today, so I'm calling you now and I'm going to say this is unacceptable. So if you have trouble running, like specifically you want to run and you hate it because for most of us running is boring, you can download this app and you can run from zombies. It actually has sound effects and music, and I think the storyline is you're running supplies to like different people trying to survive the zombie apocalypse. Very, very popular app. I would find it really helpful. I probably should run, and I hate it. I hate it so much, but I would actually enjoy running from zombies. So.
It's popular in Atlanta, right?
Yes. This is a really cool game. It's called A Remission, the Nanobots' Revenge. They give this to adults and children that are fighting cancer and going through radiation and chemotherapy. And while they're having to, their body is fighting it, they're actually fighting the stuff in the game. So the game is centered on what's actually happening in your body when you get chemotherapy and when you get radiation. And they found that the patients who played it got better faster. They were more likely to stick to their treatment. They were more likely to feel empowered about their treatment. They were more likely to just be, engaged in the whole process, understand what's going on, know what they needed to do to take care of themselves. So, how do you fight cancer? Just related to this game, which I threw in because it's a really sweet story. Programmer's 4-year-old son actually started when he was 1. He was diagnosed with cancer. For over about 3 years, he got sicker and sicker until he finally passed away. And he made this game that sort of documents the process that they went through as kind of a help to other parents going through it, as just a hope and to show them how difficult the process is, but how you can find hope and still hold your family together and do what you have to do. So this is available for people. I mean, for people who are going through this, this is an amazing resource for them. So again, going back to the kinds of impacts that we can have by making serious games. Our last section is social change. And Third World Farmer is a game that's had 3 different iterations. The newest one was made in 2014. This game, you can actually go in and see how difficult it is to be a farmer in a developing country. And the interesting thing about this game is that it teaches you that you can do everything right and still fail. Because the cards are just stacked against you. Bad luck happens. So even when you go into the game, and sometimes you can win the game, but it's really, really hard because you already start out at such a disadvantage. And so this was a tool to help people understand what it is that faces people in these kinds of situations. Some people say, well, they're not working hard enough, or well, maybe they just need to whatever. This shows that some people can be working as hard as they possibly can and still have no hope of success. So this game won awards when it came out the first time, and it's a pretty neat game. Another alternate reality game, Jane McGonigal again. This was a game that ran for 32 days, and they sent it out to a whole bunch of people, and the idea of it was, what would happen? Let's imagine we wake up tomorrow and the oil shortage has started. So over a period of time, the oil supply drastically dwindles. So they put out news reports each day that say things like, well, today the lines at the gas station were 8 people long. You weren't able to get gas even if you waited for 45 minutes, things like that. And people from all over the world responded with what they would do. And they asked people to really pretend like you're in this situation and brainstorm, how would you handle this? What would you do? And they've taken all of this data and they're now actually processing it to see if they can come up with things that we can start doing now to avoid those kinds of situations. So this was actually, to make the awareness of the problems that we face with the shortage of oil, but it was also kind of a research project to collect some data. This one is pretty similar to the Third World Farmer, but it has to do with the crisis in Darfur in Western Sudan in 2006. There's no winning this game. So it doesn't really matter what you do or who you pick. It's a game of terribleness and tragedy, because that's basically what was going on in the region. It doesn't matter who you pick. It doesn't matter what choices you make. There were no good choices, because at that time in the refugee camps, it was pretty bad. This won an award. They had run a contest for specifically, games that would help people understand what was going on in these kind of crisis regions, and this one won the award in 2006. So, this one is very sad when you play it. So it's very powerful and it's very impactful. It's very sad. Flood Sim, another game for change. This was created to raise awareness of flooding issues in the UK. They wanted to basically get them to appropriate more funding prevent, flooding, and people didn't really seem to know what the dangers were. So they created this game, got it out there to help people understand what exactly could happen in certain types of situations with flooding and damage, so that they could raise awareness and get funding to make the proper, kinds of repairs and things that they needed and to plan for the future. So, teen dating violence. This was the winner. There's an organization that's created, it's a nonprofit organization to bring awareness about teen dating violence. They have a contest every year for a game. It cannot use violence, but to raise awareness about the dangers of teen domestic violence. This was the winner in 2015. It's called Another Chance. They have the contest every year. They still have it. So I'll talk actually about funding in just like 2 minutes. And this is one of the contests that's available. So I've won a lot of awards. So now, opportunities. So if you're interested in making serious games for a living, this is something you're interested in doing, you can find a company and try to get hired. And there are lots of companies that make serious games. CIMFest is one company that makes a lot of those science games. They usually partner with universities, but they need developers, the people who can actually make the games. PlayGen makes a lot of the advertising type games. I would recommend going to a place like this website, finding serious games that you're interested in, and then look at the companies that made them and research the companies. So if you know you're interested in making a specific type of serious game, see who makes those, see if they're hiring. If you want to make your own game, there's different ways that you can get funding. So you can be self-funded if you're a millionaire or you like working 3 jobs and never sleeping. But besides that, there's also grants. If you have different contacts, corporate sponsorships, sometimes you can just get investors, like you can use Kickstarter. If you're interested in making a SciStarter, several games were started, the funding was started on SciStarter. It's like a Kickstarter, but for science projects. Crowdfunding. So there are different ways that you can do that. Let's see, do I have one specific about grants? Oh, what I want to say, sorry?
Can you tell us how to read the percentages here, because there's more than 100? Is that percentages of companies who use these methods, not?
Yes. Yes, that's right. Yeah, because companies can use more than one source of funding, so, yeah. Grants that are available, if you're interested in making health-type games, the National Institute of Health has a lot of grants available for that. There was a game made for diabetes. The game actually teaches kids how to use their insulin pumps properly, teaches them about the disease, how to eat right, but it's a game that they play. It was funded by the National Institutes for Health, National Science Foundation. There's a lot of different places you can go to get grants to fund these types of games. There are competitions. Games for Change has a competition every year. I do believe it's a $50,000 prize. Then they have these kind of mini competitions that are like, have a specific topic that have $10,000 prizes. So the one that's going on right now is for climate change. There's the Serious Games Showcase and Challenge with the Modeling and Sim, the main Modeling and Sim conference that the military always goes to, and they always have a big showcase and stuff, so that's a good one to get involved in. There's the one that I mentioned for the domestic violence. You can just Google, and look for different competitions. Hasbro actually has a competition. I think it's a $25,000 prize. There's a JavaScript and HTML game competition that goes on every year. So there's a number of those that you can look into. Especially if you have to make something for a class anyways, like you're gonna have to make it for a class, you might as well submit it to a contest. So, I wonder, do we really need a new definition for serious games? Yeah, okay, so maybe games with a focused purpose, but again, I sort of think that they're all games. Games are games are games, and any game can have a huge impact in your life. I know someone who loves to play solitaire as a stress relief. That just makes her feel so much better. This is kind of my go-to to feel better. It is super fun, but when I'm really stressed, I also like to go and nullify some zombies.
If you get down to stress, like killing a bunch of mindless crickets.
Sure, and I also feel I have learned a lot from this though. If we ever do have a zombie apocalypse, I am way more prepared now. So. All right, I'm done. Does anyone have any questions?
If we do have questions, there's a mic over there, so then we can fix it up.
Not a question, but a statement on this right here. If we had to face zombies that could sprint, I think we're all just kind of doomed.
Well, that's why you should get that Zombies Run app. So you're prepared.
Actually, question on that: is it the audio that follows you, giving you commands to
Yeah, there's an audio that plays music to kind of put you in the, I guess, to make you feel scared, like you're running from zombies, but there's a whole storyline that goes with it, like, you need to deliver this stuff, or you've got to meet these people over here, so, yeah.
I read an article yesterday that it was the predecessor of Pokemon Go because it actually used GPS.
Nice. Yeah. Well, Pokemon Go now, I mean, that's awesome. And yes, it's just a fun game, but I mean, I don't know, you can think of so many ways you could make that an educational game. You can think of how you could make that a fitness game. So, yeah.
It's a nice trip down nostalgia lane. So you forgot Lemonade Stand.
I haven't heard of Lemonade
Oh,
Stand.
it's temporary Oregon Trail.
Oh, wow. Was that like one of the original tycoons kind of a thing? So you had
Predecessor
to...
to Tycoon.
Oh yeah, I've seen like footage of that game. Basically, it's just like a kid running a lemonade stand. You have to try to get as much money as possible, and yet there's like things to take consideration, like how many people you think might show up based on the weather, and like later in the game, your mom stops giving you money, so you have to take that into consideration as well.
That's cool.
Pretty popular.
Yeah, I mean, you really, and I think games like that, and there's some terrible educational games. There really is. There's some that are just absolutely awful. But I mean, there are a lot of really, really amazing ones that people remember, I mean, just years later.
I'm not aging myself. So my first experience with simulation games was in 1972, 73. Political Science Economist, a program developed by a group called Rome Society. It was a book called Limits to Growth. It was another one of those ones you couldn't win. You basically had to balance the natural resources and fertilizer and grow crops and try to save the world. It was back in CPG, Zero Population Growth. It was really, really effective and pretty scary. And it was on mainframe.
Wow.
That was, yeah, 73.
Yeah, I mean, people act like games are sort of like a different thing, but I mean, they're not. I mean, it's just like you would use a book to teach, or you would use a television show. I mean, there's just a new way that we have now of expressing ourselves. But I think it makes it stick better, in some ways than just reading a book, because it's an experience. So, I mean, you remember these experiences years later.
I'm gonna make the comment on the mic, because I know that nothing was recorded of you guys.
Oh.
We have probably forgotten that we have used games ever since we were born to learn about the environment.
Yeah.
And this is not really new or whatever, it's just that we're calling it like that.
Yeah.
In reality, the entertainment games is the ones that are a little bit more now because we make money with those.
Right.
But we have learned, since we were children, playing games, which was a practice of things that we saw adults doing.
Absolutely.
So this is essentially what we should do. The problem, I think, unfortunately, is that sometimes we might not understand exactly how to achieve that. And that to me is the bigger question. Entertainment sometimes is if it entertains, I'm good. But in this case, I've thought about some serious games that have not been able to really develop to teach skills. But doing that is a lot more difficult because testing it.
Yes.
See, in general, if it is entertaining and it sells, the ones that pay, they're happy.
Yeah.
If you want to do something like this, particularly in academic place, oh, you have to run studies, improve, and see if it actually work, etc. And then you might never actually deliver it because you never had the data. But it actually may have worked, but you never had the data, so I'm sorry. Whereas the entertainment is more, you made the money, good.
Right. And
So.
I thought about entitling the talk, something like there's no such thing as serious games, like, because we really sort of fabricated it, and you're right, and having games based on studies is important, but I think you can do that. You can get to the point where we're not putting anything out. And if you put out an educational game that's fun and entertaining, and some kids learn from it and some don't, I don't know. I don't know that it needs to be tested for 12 years inside of a laboratory, because especially when these games come out that have been tested for 5, 10, 12 years in a laboratory, they are awful. They are terrible. I was in a school district spent over $1 million on some games that I won't mention the product names. They'll probably be sued. This is on the internet. But I would see these kids and they would just be like this, and I'd say, well, what are you doing? Well, I just push this button until finally some balloons show up and then I can shoot them. Like, they're not even trying. They're not even trying to do the math problems or the reading skills or whatever. And this game was heavily researched and had all this whatever, charging school districts, like I said, over $1 million for these licenses for these predominantly struggling schools. These are low-income, at-risk schools, and they're useless, just a complete and total waste of money. And not fun, nobody's learning anything, so, I don't know, I think if we just have people who are passionate about games, just make games. And if they can put something in there that they know that they want other people to learn, and that gets passed along with it, I think that's amazing, and that's the way it needs to be. Yeah.
I vote for that.
All right.